Willow Foster's hands trembled as she stood outside the glass tower that housed Kingsley Industries, knowing that once she walked through those doors, everything would change. The morning sun reflected off the building's pristine windows, and she took one last deep breath of freedom before stepping inside to meet the man who had summoned her for an interview she never expected to get. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like an eternity. She caught her reflection in the polished steel doors and barely recognized herself. The professional blazer, the carefully styled hair, the makeup that covered the exhaustion in her eyes. This version of Willow looked like she belonged in a corporate environment, but that was exactly the problem. It was all a costume, and she knew it. When the doors opened, a pristine reception area greeted her. A woman with perfect posture and an even more perfect smile gestured toward a waiting area. Willow sat on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent, clutching her portfolio like a lifeline. Miss Foster, a woman in her 50s, appeared, her expression kind but businesslike. "Mr. Kingsley will see you now." Willow's heart hammered as she followed the woman down a hallway lined with abstract art that she suspected was worth more than her entire apartment building. They stopped at a door, and the woman knocked twice before opening it. The office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But Willow barely noticed the view because her attention was immediately drawn to the man standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear. Isaac Kingsley was younger than she expected. Most CEOs of multimillion-dollar hotel chains were gray-haired men in their 60s, but Isaac couldn't have been older than 35. He was tall, with dark hair, and the kind of commanding presence that made the enormous office feel suddenly smaller. He wore a navy suit that fit him perfectly, and even from across the room, Willow could sense the intensity that radiated from him. He finished his call and turned to face her, and their eyes met for the first time. His were a startling shade of gray, sharp and assessing. Willow felt exposed under that gaze, as if he could see through all her carefully constructed defenses. "Miss Foster," he said, his voice deep and measured. He didn't smile, but his expression wasn't unkind. "Please sit." Willow crossed the office on legs that felt unsteady and sat in one of the chairs facing his desk. Isaac remained standing for a moment, studying her in a way that made her want to squirm. Then he moved to his chair and sat down with fluid grace. "Your portfolio is impressive," he said, opening the folder in front of him. She recognized it as the digital portfolio she had submitted with her application. "Your designs are bold, innovative, not what I usually see from interior designers in this city." "Thank you," Willow managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm renovating the flagship Kingsley Hotel," Isaac continued, leaning back in his chair. "It's a historic building, but it needs to appeal to modern sensibilities while maintaining its classic elegance. I've interviewed 15 designers in the past month, and none of them understood the vision." He paused, his gray eyes fixing on her again. "But when I saw your work, something clicked. You have an eye for blending old and new in a way that feels organic rather than forced." He tilted his head slightly. "The question is whether you can handle a project of this magnitude. This isn't designing a boutique hotel or a trendy restaurant. This is a complete overhaul of a 200-room hotel in the heart of the city, with a budget that would make most designers' heads spin." Willow's mouth went dry. This was the moment she should tell him the truth. The moment she should explain that while her designs were real, her credentials weren't quite what they seemed. That she had learned everything she knew not from prestigious design schools, but from years of working odd jobs in the hospitality industry while teaching herself at night. That her portfolio was built from small projects, favors for friends, and one lucky break with a boutique inn owner who had taken a chance on her. But the words stuck in her throat because she needed this job. Desperately. Her younger brother's medical bills were piling up, and her mother could barely keep their family home. This opportunity could change everything. "I can handle it," she said instead, hating herself for the lie of omission. Isaac studied her for a long moment, and Willow was certain he could hear her heart pounding. Then he nodded. "I want to see how you work before I make any final decisions," he said. "I'm going to give you a test project. There's a suite on the 10th floor that needs redesigning. I'll give you 2 weeks and a reasonable budget. Show me what you can do with it and we'll discuss the larger project." Relief flooded through her. 2 weeks. She could prove herself in 2 weeks. "I won't disappoint you," Willow said. "I hope not." Isaac stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "My assistant will send you all the details. The suite is yours starting tomorrow." Willow stood as well, extending her hand. When Isaac shook it, his grip was firm and warm, and something electric passed between them. It was fleeting, barely a second, but it left her slightly breathless. "Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Kingsley." "Call me Isaac," he said. "If we're going to be working together, formality seems unnecessary." She nodded and turned to leave, acutely aware of his gaze following her across the office. It wasn't until she was back in the elevator, descending toward ground level, that she let herself exhale fully. What had she just done? Over the next 2 weeks, Willow threw herself into the suite redesign with an intensity that bordered on obsession. She spent every waking hour in that 10th floor suite, tearing down outdated wallpaper, sourcing materials, coordinating with contractors, and bringing her vision to life. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and determination. Isaac appeared periodically to check on her progress, always unexpected, always observing with those sharp gray eyes. Each visit left Willow feeling unsettled in a way she couldn't quite name. It wasn't just nervousness about impressing her potential boss. There was something else, something that sparked in the air between them whenever they spoke. "You're not afraid to take risks," Isaac commented one afternoon, running his hand along the exposed brick wall she had revealed. Originally, she had planned to cover it with drywall, but when she discovered the beautiful old brick beneath the plaster, she couldn't bring herself to hide it. "Sometimes the best design choices are the ones that reveal what's already there," Willow said, wiping dust from her hands. She was wearing jeans and an old t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, completely different from the polished professional she had presented at the interview. Isaac glanced at her and something flickered in his expression. "You look different." Willow's stomach dropped. "I'm sorry. I should have dressed more professionally. I just got caught up in the work, and I didn't say it was a bad thing," Isaac interrupted. He moved closer, and Willow found herself backed against the exposed brick wall. He wasn't touching her, but he was close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. "You seem more real like this, more yourself," her breath caught. "Isaac, Mr. Kingsley," a voice called from the doorway, shattering the moment. Isaac's assistant appeared, tablet in hand. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have a conference call in 5 minutes." Isaac stepped back immediately, his professional mask sliding back into place. "Of course. Thank you, Margaret." He looked at Willow once more, his expression unreadable. "Continue what you are doing. It's excellent work." Then he was gone, leaving Willow pressed against the brick wall with her heart racing and her mind spinning. This was dangerous. She couldn't afford to develop feelings for Isaac Kingsley. He was her potential employer, a CEO worth millions, and she was a designer with a fabricated resume and a mountain of family debt. They existed in completely different worlds. She forced herself to focus on the work, channeling all her confused emotions into perfecting every detail of the suite. When the 2 weeks were up, she stood in the completed space and felt a surge of pride. The suite was beautiful. She had created something that honored the building's history while feeling fresh and contemporary. The exposed brick wall served as a focal point, complemented by modern furnishings in rich jewel tones. Vintage light fixtures she had found at an antique market cast warm light across the space, and custom artwork tied everything together. Isaac arrived for the final walkthrough at exactly 9 in the morning. He stepped into the suite and stopped, his eyes sweeping across the space. Willow watched his face anxiously, trying to read his reaction. He moved through the suite slowly, taking in every detail. He examined the custom headboard she had designed, ran his fingers along the refurbished vintage dresser, tested the lighting, and stood for a long moment in front of the brick wall. Finally, he turned to face her. "It's perfect," he said simply. Willow released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Really, really." Isaac moved toward her, and that intensity was back in his eyes. "You understand what I wanted before I even fully articulated it. This is exactly the vision I had for the flagship hotel." He paused. "The job is yours, Willow, full renovation starting immediately." Joy surged through her, so powerful it almost brought tears to her eyes. "Thank you. You won't regret this." "I know I won't," Isaac said. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face, making him look younger and somehow more approachable. "I'd like to take you to dinner tonight, to celebrate and to discuss the details of the project." Willow's heart skipped. "Dinner?" "Unless you'd prefer a formal meeting in my office," Isaac said, and there was something in his tone, a hint of something personal beneath the professional veneer. "Dinner sounds great," Willow heard herself say, even though warning bells were ringing in her head. That evening, Willow stood in front of her closet, panic rising in her chest. She owned exactly 2 dresses suitable for a nice restaurant, and both were years old. She chose the black one, simple and classic, and paired it with her only good heels. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone who looked almost like she belonged in Isaac's world. Almost. The restaurant was downtown, the kind of place with cloth napkins and a wine list thicker than a novel. Isaac was already there when Willow arrived, standing when she approached the table. He had changed from his suit into dark slacks and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, somehow managing to look both more casual and more devastating. "You look beautiful," he said as he held out her chair. "Thank you," Willow murmured, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. They ordered, and for the first part of the meal, they discussed the hotel project. Isaac laid out his vision in more detail, his passion for the building evident in every word. The flagship Kingsley Hotel had been his grandfather's first property, and restoring it was deeply personal to him. "It's where I fell in love with this business," Isaac said, his fingers tracing the stem of his wine glass. "My grandfather used to bring me there when I was a kid. He'd walk through every floor, talking to staff, checking on guests, ensuring every detail was perfect. He taught me that hospitality isn't just about providing a service. It's about creating an experience, a memory that stays with people." Willow found herself leaning forward, captivated by the emotion in his voice. This was a side of Isaac she hadn't seen before, softer and more vulnerable. "He sounds like an amazing man," she said. "He was." Isaac's expression grew distant. "He passed away 3 years ago, left me the company and a legacy that feels impossible to live up to sometimes." "I think you are doing more than living up to it," Willow said softly. "The way you care about this renovation, the attention to detail. That's his influence, isn't it?" Isaac's gray eyes met hers, and something shifted between them. The conversation moved away from business, becoming more personal. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, the paths that had led them to this moment. Isaac spoke about the pressure of running a family empire, the loneliness that came with his position. Willow shared carefully edited stories about growing up in a working-class family, about her love of design and her determination to succeed. But with every story she told, every small truth she shared, the weight of her deception grew heavier. She wasn't being completely honest with him, and she knew it. The longer the evening went on, the more she realized she was in trouble. Because somewhere between the appetizers and dessert, she had stopped seeing Isaac as just a potential employer. She was seeing him as a man she could fall for, hard and fast. "I should be honest with you about something," Isaac said suddenly, setting down his coffee cup. His expression had turned serious. "This dinner isn't just about business." Willow's heart began to race. "It's not." "No." Isaac reached across the table, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm and sent electricity racing up her arm. "From the moment you walked into my office, I felt something. I tried to tell myself it was just recognition of your talent, professional interest. But that would be a lie." "Isaac," Willow whispered, but she didn't know what else to say. "I know this is complicated," he continued, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. "You're about to start working on my most important project, but I can't ignore this connection between us. Tell me you feel it too." She should pull her hand away. She should establish boundaries, keep things professional, but she couldn't because he was right. The connection was undeniable, electric, impossible to ignore. "I feel it," she admitted, her voice barely audible. Isaac's expression intensified, and for a moment, Willow thought he might kiss her right there in the middle of the restaurant. But he just squeezed her hand and said, "We should take this slowly. We are both professionals and the project has to come first. But I want you to know that I'm interested in more than just your design skills, Willow." The drive home was a blur. Willow's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, her emotions a tangled mess of excitement, anxiety, and guilt. When she finally collapsed onto her worn couch in her tiny apartment, reality came crashing down. She pulled out her phone and called the one person who knew the whole truth. "Tell me you didn't fall for him," her best friend Maggie said without preamble. "I think I'm in trouble, Mags," Willow admitted, staring at the water-stained ceiling. "You need to tell him the truth about your background," Maggie said firmly, "before this goes any further." "I will," Willow promised. "I just need to prove myself first. Once the project is underway, once he sees what I can really do, then I'll explain everything. He'll understand." "Will he?" Maggie's doubt was clear even through the phone. That question haunted Willow as the project began in earnest. She spent her days at the hotel, working with contractors, managing timelines, making 1,000 decisions. And Isaac was there constantly, checking progress, offering input and finding excuses to spend time with her. They fell into a rhythm that felt dangerously comfortable. Coffee meetings that turned into long conversations. Site visits that ended with lingering looks. Working dinners where they forgot to talk about work. They were dancing around whatever was building between them, both acknowledging it and trying to maintain professional boundaries. One evening, about 3 weeks into the project, they were alone in what would eventually become the hotel's renovated lobby. It was after hours, and the construction crew had gone home. Willow was showing Isaac her plans for the front desk, and he was standing close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "You're brilliant, you know that," Isaac said suddenly, not looking at the plans but at her. Willow's breath caught. "Isaac, I'm trying to be professional," he said, his voice rough. "I'm trying to give us time to do this right. But God, Willow, you make it difficult." She turned to face him fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her knees weak. You make it pretty difficult too. Yeah. He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. What are we doing here, Willow? I don't know, she whispered honestly. I want to kiss you, Isaac said, his thumb tracing along her jaw. I've wanted to kiss you since that first day in the suite when you were covered in dust and completely in your element. Tell me to stop, and I will. Willow knew she should stop this. Knew that she needed to tell him the truth first, that starting something with him while carrying this secret was wrong. But when he looked at her like that, when he touched her like she was something precious, all her rational thoughts scattered. Don't stop, she breathed. Isaac closed the distance between them, and when his lips met hers, everything else faded away. The kiss was slow and deep, full of all the tension that had been building between them for weeks. His hands cupped her face gently, reverently, while hers fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, he said quietly. I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but I can't help it. I'm falling for you too, Willow admitted, and it was both a relief and a terror to say it out loud. They agreed to keep their relationship quiet while the project was ongoing, not wanting to complicate the professional dynamic or invite gossip. But it was nearly impossible to hide the way they gravitated toward each other, the way their eyes met across rooms, the stolen moments when they were alone. Willow had never been happier or more terrified. Every day with Isaac made her feelings deepen, but every day also increased the weight of her secret. She kept telling herself she would find the right moment to explain everything, but that moment never seemed to come. 2 months into the project, Isaac invited her to dinner at his penthouse. It was the first time she had been to his home, and stepping into the luxurious space drove home just how different their worlds were. The penthouse was stunning, with modern furnishings and artwork that Willow recognized from famous galleries. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled out like a carpet of lights. This is incredible, Willow said, turning in a slow circle. It's too big for one person, Isaac said, handing her a glass of wine. Sometimes I rattle around in here and wonder why I bought such a massive place. It's a beautiful space, though, Willow said, moving to the windows. You could see this view every day and never get tired of it. Isaac came to stand beside her, close enough that their arms brushed. I'm starting to realize that the view doesn't matter much if you have no one to share it with. Willow looked up at him, and the emotion in his eyes took her breath away. They had been dating for weeks now, but he looked at her like she was the most important thing in his world. Isaac, she started, but he silenced her with a kiss. Dinner was forgotten as they moved to the couch, their kisses growing more heated. When Isaac pulled back, his eyes dark with desire, he cupped her face in his hands. Stay tonight, he said. Not just for tonight, I mean stay, move in with me. Willow stared at him in shock. What? I know it's fast, Isaac said, his thumbs stroking her cheeks. But I'm 34 years old, Willow. I've dated plenty, but I've never felt like this about anyone. You make me laugh. You challenge me. When I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years. I don't want to waste time pretending this is anything less than serious. Tears pricked at Willow's eyes because his words were everything she wanted to hear, and everything that made her deception so much worse. I need to tell you something first, she said, her voice shaking. Isaac's expression grew concerned. What is it? This was it. The moment she had been dreading and avoiding. She pulled away from him, needing space to get the words out. My credentials aren't exactly what you think they are, she began, her hands twisting together anxiously. I mean, my work is real. All the designs in my portfolio are mine, but I didn't go to the prestigious design school that's listed on my resume. I couldn't afford it. Everything I know, I taught myself while working whatever jobs I could find. I exaggerated my background because I was desperate for a chance to prove myself. The silence that followed felt eternal. Isaac's expression was unreadable, and Willow felt like she might be sick. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" His voice was carefully controlled, which somehow felt worse than if he had yelled. "I was scared," Willow admitted, tears starting to fall. "I needed this job so badly. My little brother has health issues, medical bills that are drowning my family. My mom is about to lose our house. This opportunity could change everything for us, and I couldn't bear to risk it. So you lied to me." "I omitted things," Willow said desperately. "But my work is real, Isaac. Everything I have done on this project is genuine. I can do this job. I've proven that. That's not the point." Isaac stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. "The point is that I trusted you. I opened up to you. I told you things I don't tell anyone, and the entire time you were keeping this from me." "I'm sorry," Willow sobbed. "I was going to tell you sooner, but then we got involved and I was scared of losing you. I'm so sorry, Isaac." He looked at her and the hurt in his eyes broke her heart. "I don't even know who you really are." "Yes, you do," Willow insisted, standing to face him. "Everything between us has been real. My feelings for you are real. The person you've gotten to know, that's really me. The only thing I wasn't honest about was my educational background, but that doesn't change who I am or what I feel for you." Isaac shook his head. His expression shuddered. "I need time to think about this. You should go." "Isaac, please, just go, Willow." The ride home was a blur of tears. Willow let herself into her apartment and collapsed, sobbing into her worn couch cushions. She had ruined everything. The best thing that had ever happened to her, and she had destroyed it with her lies. Her phone buzzed with a message from Maggie, but Willow couldn't bring herself to respond. She cried until she had no tears left, then lay in the darkness, staring at nothing. The next morning she dragged herself to the hotel, uncertain what to expect. Would Isaac fire her? Would he be there at all? Her heart sank when she saw him in the lobby, talking to one of the contractors. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept, and when his eyes met hers across the space, his expression was carefully blank. "Miss Foster," he said formally when she approached. "A word in my office." The use of her last name felt like a knife to the chest. Willow followed him to the small, temporary office he had set up on site, her stomach churning with dread. Isaac closed the door and turned to face her, keeping the desk between them like a barrier. "I've thought about this all night," he said, his voice carefully professional. "You're right that your work is excellent. The project is ahead of schedule and under budget, and the results are better than I could have hoped. From a purely professional standpoint, you've exceeded expectations." "But," Willow whispered, because she could hear the unspoken word. "But I can't continue a personal relationship with someone who wasn't honest with me," Isaac said, and the pain in his eyes matched the pain in her chest. "Trust is everything to me, Willow. It's something I don't give easily, and when it's broken, I don't know how to repair it." Willow nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I want you to finish the project," Isaac continued. "You deserve that opportunity, and the hotel deserves your vision. But things between us need to remain strictly professional from now on." "Okay," Willow managed, even though the word felt like it was being torn from her chest. Isaac's jaw tightened, and for a moment his composure cracked. "For what it's worth, I wish things were different." "Me too," Willow whispered. The following weeks were torture. Working alongside Isaac while maintaining professional distance was like slowly dying. They were polite to each other, cordial even, but the warmth and connection they had shared was gone. Willow threw herself into the project with desperate intensity, working 18-hour days, perfecting every detail. If she couldn't have Isaac's love, At least she could give him the hotel renovation of his dreams. Her brother's surgery was scheduled for the middle of the project, and Willow took 3 days off to be with her family. The surgery went well, and seeing her little brother smile without pain for the first time in months reminded her why she had taken the risk in the first place. But even that joy was muted because all she could think about was Isaac. When she returned to the hotel, she found a note on her workspace. It was from Isaac, a simple message saying he hoped her brother's surgery had gone well and that he was glad she was back. It was professional and kind, and it made Willow cry in the bathroom for 20 minutes. One evening, about 4 months into the project, Willow was working late on the top floor, finalizing the design for the hotel's signature suite. She was so absorbed in her work that she didn't hear Isaac approach until he spoke. "You're here late." Willow jumped, nearly dropping her tablet. Isaac stood in the doorway, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up, looking as exhausted as she felt. "I wanted to get this finished," she said, gesturing to the suite plans. "It's the last major design element." Isaac moved into the room, maintaining careful distance between them. He looked at the plans and something softened in his expression. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "The whole project is beautiful. You've created something extraordinary here." "Thank you," Willow said, her heart aching at the sadness in his voice. They stood in uncomfortable silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. "I miss you," Isaac said suddenly, the words seeming to escape without his permission. "I've tried to be professional and maintain boundaries, but I miss you every single day." Willow's breath caught. "Isaac, let me finish," he said, holding up a hand. "I've spent these months being angry and hurt, telling myself that I was right to end things. But the truth is, I've been miserable, and I've had a lot of time to think about why you did what you did." He moved closer, and Willow's heart began to race. "You were protecting your family," Isaac continued. "You were trying to survive and to create opportunities that the world hadn't given you. Was lying on your resume wrong? Yes, but I've been in a position of privilege my entire life. I inherited wealth and connections and opportunities that you had to fight tooth and nail for. Who am I to judge you for doing what you had to do?" Tears were streaming down Willow's face. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," Isaac said softly. He reached out, cupping her face in his hands and wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "I'm not saying what you did was right, but I'm saying I understand it, and more importantly, I'm saying that I forgive you, because the thought of living without you is worse than the hurt of being lied to." "Really?" Willow whispered, afraid to believe what she was hearing. "Really," Isaac confirmed. His gray eyes searched hers, and the love she saw there made her knees weak. "You said your feelings for me were real. Are they still?" "Yes," Willow said without hesitation. "I'm so in love with you, Isaac. I have been for months. Walking away from you was the hardest thing I've ever done." "You didn't walk away," Isaac corrected. "I pushed you away, and it was a mistake." Then he was kissing her, and it felt like coming home. Willow wrapped her arms around his neck, kissing him back with all the pent-up emotion of the past lonely months. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. "I don't want to waste any more time," Isaac said, resting his forehead against hers. "I asked you to move in with me once before. I'm asking again. Please, Willow, say yes this time." "Yes," Willow said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." The hotel project was completed 2 months later, and it was everything Isaac had hoped for and more. The grand reopening was a massive event, covered by every major publication. Critics raved about the design, calling it a perfect blend of historic elegance and contemporary style. Willow's name was suddenly in demand, with offers pouring in from all over the country. But the most important moment of that opening night came when Isaac pulled Willow aside, away from the crowds and the cameras, to a quiet corner of the lobby. "You remember what I told you that first day in the suite?" he asked, taking her hands in his. "That sometimes the best design choices are the ones that reveal what's already there." Willow nodded, confused about where he was going with this. "You revealed something in me that I didn't know was there," Isaac said, his voice thick with emotion. "The ability to trust someone completely. The courage to be vulnerable. The knowledge that love is worth the risk. You changed me, Willow." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, and Willow's heart stopped. "I know we haven't been together that long by traditional standards," Isaac said, dropping to one knee. "But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to build a family with you and grow old together. Willow Foster, will you marry me?" "Yes," Willow cried, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Isaac slipped the ring onto her finger, a beautiful vintage piece with a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. Then he stood and kissed her, and the sound of applause made them break apart. They looked around to find that their private moment had been witnessed by half the party, including Willow's mother and brother, who had been invited as guests of honor. "I love you," Willow whispered to Isaac, not caring who heard. "I love you too," he replied, pulling her close. "More than I knew it was possible to love someone." The wedding took place 6 months later in a small ceremony at the renovated hotel, in the very suite where Willow had first proven herself. It was intimate and perfect, with only their closest friends and family in attendance. Willow's brother, healthy and thriving after his surgery, served as the ring bearer. Her mother cried happy tears throughout the entire ceremony. As Willow walked down the aisle toward Isaac, wearing a simple white dress she had chosen herself, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. The lies she had told, the fear she had carried, the moment she had almost lost everything. But she also thought about second chances and forgiveness, about love that was strong enough to overcome mistakes. Isaac watched her approach with such love in his eyes that Willow felt like her heart might burst. When she reached him, he took her hands, and they spoke their vows with voices full of emotion. "I promise to always be honest with you," Willow said, tears streaming down her face. "To trust you with my whole heart, and to never let fear keep me from being completely myself with you." "I promise to always see you for who you really are," Isaac replied, his voice rough with emotion. "To support your dreams, to forgive your mistakes as I hope you'll forgive mine, and to love you with everything I have for the rest of my life." When they kissed as husband and wife, it felt like the beginning of everything. The years that followed were filled with more happiness than Willow had ever thought possible. She built a thriving interior design business, taking on projects that challenged and excited her. Isaac supported her every step of the way, never once making her feel like she needed to live in his shadow. They were true partners, in business and in life. Willow also went back to school, earning the degree she had lied about having. It wasn't necessary for her career anymore, but it was important to her personally. Isaac sat in the audience at her graduation, cheering louder than anyone else, so proud he could barely contain it. They bought a house in the suburbs, something more comfortable and homey than Isaac's penthouse. Willow designed every room, creating a space that felt like a perfect reflection of both of them. The house had a large backyard, and Isaac joked that they needed to fill it with children. Willow's mother moved into the guest house they built on the property, and her brother became a frequent visitor, especially after he started college nearby. The family dinners they shared were loud and chaotic, and everything Willow had dreamed of growing up. 2 years after their wedding, Willow discovered she was pregnant. She told Isaac on a quiet Sunday morning, handing him a small box that contained a positive pregnancy test and a note that said, "Our greatest design project yet." Isaac's reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He cried, he laughed. He picked her up and spun her around carefully before remembering she was pregnant and setting her down gently. Then he knelt in front of her, pressing kisses to her still flat stomach and whispering promises to their unborn child. Their daughter, Elena Grace Kingsley, was born on a snowy January morning. She had Isaac's gray eyes and Willow's smile, and from the moment she entered the world, she had both of her parents completely wrapped around her tiny fingers. Watching Isaac with their daughter made Willow fall in love with him all over again. He was a wonderful father, patient and loving and completely devoted. He scaled back his work hours to spend more time at home, and the sight of him walking through the house with Elena on his shoulders became Willow's favorite thing in the world. 2 years later, they welcomed a son, Thomas Isaac Kingsley, who had his mother's dark hair and his father's stubborn determination. Their family felt complete, their house filled with laughter and love and the beautiful chaos of raising children. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Isaac surprised Willow with a weekend away, their first alone time since Thomas was born. They returned to the hotel where they had met, staying in the signature suite that Willow had designed all those years ago. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if you hadn't applied for that job?" Isaac asked as they sat on the suite's balcony, watching the city lights. "All the time," Willow admitted, leaning into his side. "I almost didn't apply. I was so sure I wasn't qualified, that I didn't belong in your world." "And now?" Isaac asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Now I know that belonging somewhere isn't about where you come from or what credentials you have," Willow said thoughtfully. "It's about finding the place where you're loved for exactly who you are." "You belong with me," Isaac said firmly. "You always have. From that first moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you. I just didn't have the words for it yet." "I'm not what you thought I was when we first met," Willow said, echoing the warning she had given him years ago. "No," Isaac agreed, turning to face her. His gray eyes were full of love and warmth. "You're so much more. You're stronger than I thought, more talented, more compassionate, more everything. You exceeded every expectation I had and made me realize my expectations were too small in the first place." "I love you," Willow said, tears gathering in her eyes. "Thank you for seeing past my mistakes to who I really am." "I love you too," Isaac replied, cupping her face in his hands. "Thank you for taking a chance on me, on us. Thank you for trusting me with your heart even when you were afraid." They kissed as the city sparkled around them, two people who had found each other against the odds and built something beautiful together. Years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. Elena grew into a creative child who loved to draw and design, already showing signs of inheriting her mother's talent. Thomas was more analytical, fascinated by how things worked, with a head for business that reminded everyone of his father. Willow's design firm expanded, and she hired a team of talented designers, making a point to look past prestigious credentials and focus on raw talent and passion. She remembered what it felt like to be overlooked and made sure to give chances to people who might otherwise be dismissed. Isaac stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Kingsley Industries, appointing a trusted CEO while he remained chairman of the board. He wanted more time with his family, more balance in his life, and he never regretted the decision. They traveled together as a family, showing their children the world. They had quiet movie nights at home and elaborate celebrations for birthdays and holidays. They argued sometimes because no marriage is perfect, but they always came back to love, always chose each other. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows in the same suite where they had married, with Alina and Thomas standing beside them. The ceremony was even smaller this time, just immediate family, but it was no less meaningful. 10 years ago, I promised to love you for the rest of my life, Isaac said, his voice steady and sure. Today, I'm here to tell you that the past 10 years have been the best of my life, and I'm more in love with you now than I was on our wedding day. You've given me a family, a home, a life I never knew I was missing. I promise to spend the next 10 years and all the years after that showing you how grateful I am that you walked into my office that day. Willow was crying, but they were happy tears. 10 years ago, I was terrified that you would discover who I really was and stop loving me, she said. But you've spent every day since then showing me that you don't just love me despite my flaws and my past. You love me because of all of it, because it made me who I am. You've given me safety and acceptance and a love I never dared to dream of. I promise to spend the rest of our lives being worthy of that love. They kissed, and their children cheered, and Willow felt a completeness that she knew would last forever. Sometimes, when she walked through the flagship Kingsley Hotel, Willow would stop and remember that terrified woman who had applied for a job she didn't think she deserved. She would think about the lies she had told and the fear she had carried, and she would marvel at how far she had come. But mostly she thought about Isaac and the love they had built together. A love that had started with deception, but had grown into something honest and true and unbreakable. A love that proved that sometimes the most important discoveries weren't about what someone wasn't, but about who they truly were underneath everything else. Isaac had expected to hire a designer. He had never expected to find the love of his life, his partner, his home. And Willow had expected to fake her way through a job interview. She had never expected to find a man who would love her not despite her imperfections, but because of them, because they made her real and human and perfect for him. Years later, when Alina was in college studying design and Thomas was preparing to join the family business, Willow and Isaac would sit on their porch swing in the evenings, watching the sunset and holding hands like teenagers. "You ever regret it?" Willow asked one evening. "Taking a chance on someone like me?" Isaac looked at her, his gray eyes still as intense as they had been the first day they met, but warmer now, filled with years of shared love and laughter. "Never," he said firmly. "You're the best decision I ever made, the best discovery, the best everything." "I warned you," Willow said with a smile. "I told you I wasn't what you thought. And I'm so glad you weren't," Isaac replied, pulling her close, "because what I discovered was so much better than anything I could have imagined." They sat together as the sun set, two people who had found each other when they needed it most, who had worked through mistakes and forgiveness to build something lasting and true. Their love story hadn't been perfect, but it had been real, and that made it perfect enough. The house behind them was filled with memories, the walls covered with family photos and artwork from their children. The hotel where they had met still stood downtown, a testament to their collaboration and the beginning of their love story. And their future stretched out before them, full of promise and possibility. Willow had once thought that hiding who she really was would give her the best chance at success. But she had learned that the opposite was true. Being seen, truly seen for exactly who she was, had been the scariest and most rewarding experience of her life. Isaac had taught her that love meant accepting someone completely, flaws and all. And she had taught him that trust could be rebuilt, that mistakes could be forgiven, and that sometimes the people who seemed least likely to fit into your life turned out to be exactly what you needed. They had both discovered that the most important thing wasn't where you came from, or what credentials you had, or what world you were born into. The most important thing was finding someone who saw you, all of you, and chose to love you anyway. That was the real success story. That was the real happily ever after. And as the last rays of sunlight faded and the stars began to appear, Isaac pulled Willow closer and whispered, "I love what I discovered." Willow smiled, resting her head on his shoulder, and whispered back, "I love you too, always." Their story had begun with a lie and a warning, but it had transformed into something beautiful and true. And that, Willow thought as she sat surrounded by love and peace and contentment, was the best kind of story there was.